Our State of the U.S. segment tonight. Republican Senator Jeff Flake announced yesterday that he would not be seeking re-election in 2018. And President Trump's message to the senator was clear. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. In a speech on the Senate floor, though, Flake called the president's behavior outrageous and dangerous to democracy. The president responded by tweeting, "The reason Flake and Corker dropped out of the Senate race is very simple. They had zero chance of being elected." This is Senator Flake.
But we must never adjust to the present coarseness of our national dialogue with the tone set at the top. We must never regard as normal the regular and casual undermining of our democratic norms and ideals. We must never meekly accept the daily sundering of our country. The personal attacks, the threats against principles, freedoms and institution, the flagrant disregard for truth and decency, the reckless provocations, most often for the pettiest and most personal reasons, reasons having nothing whatsoever to do with the fortunes of the people that we have been elected to serve. None of these appalling features of our current politics should ever be regarded as normal. Were the shoe on the other foot, would we Republicans meekly accept such behavior on display from dominant Democrats? Of course we wouldn't, and we would be wrong if we did. I've decided that I would be better able to represent the people of Arizona and to better serve my country and my conscience by freeing myself of the political consideration that consumed far too much bandwidth and would cause me to compromise far too many principles. To that end, I am announcing today that my service in the Senate will conclude at the end of my term.
With me now, spokesperson for the Republican National Committee, Kayleigh McEnany. Kayleigh, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Liz.
All right, Kayleigh, talk to me about this. This is interesting to me because Senator Jeff Flake, when he was in the House of Representatives, before he got elected to the Senate, he was fairly conservative. He was even a little more aggressive about his conservatism. He seemed to be fairly principled. One of the main reasons that he states that he's not seeking re-election is he said he would rather leave the United States Senate than get on board with Trump and Trump's agenda. But if you look not just at Trump's tweets, not just at what Senator Flake calls his petty arguments, I mean, a lot of things economically have improved greatly even in this 1 year since Trump has been president. And I guess I don't understand how a man who voted with President Trump 80% of the time is unwilling to get on board with his agenda.
That's right. It makes no sense because, as you noted, he oftentimes votes with the president's agenda. But I think, one of the things I've heard constantly is he's unwilling to get on board with the Trump agenda. Well, let's think about that. The Trump agenda is the agenda of the people of Arizona who voted for the president by 4%. Likewise with Corker, the Trump agenda is the agenda of the people of Tennessee because they voted for President Trump by 26 percentage points. So all of these senators who are saying, I can't stand with the president, what they're really saying is I can't stand with you, my constituents, the people who I'm supposed to represent. It's sad that they're letting personal petty politics get in the way, and we should all stand behind the president, bottom line.
Right, and it seems to me that it's more of a statement on the fact that they can't get along with the president's personality. And I'm not going to sit here and defend every single thing that President Trump tweets. Sometimes I think it would be better if he didn't say some of the things that he said. Sometimes I agree with what he says, even on Twitter. But it seems to me that it is an unwillingness to work with that personality versus a policy difference. Because like I said, 80% of the time, that is the percentage of times that Senator Flake has voted with the president within the past year. It's a personal difference, not a policy difference.
That's right. And Ted Cruz came out today and basically said, what I had just said in the last little talk there, which was that everyone should stand behind the president. Think about how caustic and bitter that battle got in the primary between Senator Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. It got personal, but Ted Cruz is willing to set aside, personal disagreements about personality or whatever it may be and stand for conservatism. And likewise, I'm impressed by someone like Lindsey Graham, who's done the same. On the other side of the spectrum, a moderate who's just said, I'm here to put forward solutions. I'm here to put forward Graham Cassidy. That is what I am here to do. And he said, look, the president beat me. And so that means I'm here to implement his agenda because he is the one who won a national election. And those are the kind of team players I wish all Republican elected officials would endeavor to be.
Right, because I think unless we ourselves are elected officials or unless we ourselves are president of the United States, we're never going to agree with someone 100% of the time, but it always has to be that comparison to look who might else be president if this person weren't. If Donald Trump weren't president, Hillary Clinton would be president, and that would be far and away worse. All right, but as someone who works for the RNC, I mean, one of the goals of the RNC is to win elections, to make sure that there's a majority in the Senate, in the House, and of course, the presidency. How do you differentiate between senators and congressmen having a legitimate issue with the president that needs to be addressed to avoid party division and just identifying opportunism?
Well, I think it's very simple, really. You look at someone like Rand Paul, for instance, who wasn't on board with healthcare. I was frustrated that many of us in the Republican Party were frustrated by that. But we can at least respect a policy difference, something rooted in facts, something grounded in a difference on policy. He wanted full-fledged repeal and replace. He felt Graham Cassidy fell short of that. That's a policy difference. That's something we might disagree with. We might push Rand Paul to get on board with us, but it's policy-based. But when you are someone who's provoking attacks, who's just lobbing grenades at the president, unprovoked. The president didn't say anything about Corker in the last few days. He didn't say anything about Flake, but they just decided out of their own initiative to come out and attack. That is a personal attack. It's unprovoked. It's not as if the president said anything about them. The Corker feud was weeks ago, and they chose to play personal politics. So I think there's a difference between policy and personal politics.
Right, and I think arguably, even though Senator Flake is positioning himself as being more conservative than Donald Trump, his voting record doesn't exactly show that. He had the potential to play that role at some point, but he voted for several things when he was in the House that were not very conservative. He voted for the post-Newtown gun grab. He voted for the Gang of Eight amnesty bill. He voted against defunding Obamacare in 2013. Those aren't exactly conservative policies either, but the whole thing, it's a little bit of a head scratcher to me. Kaylee, thanks for coming on the show and breaking it down. I appreciate it.